Hello there and welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Bullshit. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie Snyder, and I am a high performance mentor. Through my unique blend of strategy, mindset, and intuition, I help men and women to cut through the BS in order to create the life and business they desire. So, I was reading this book yesterday. It's called Happy Place. The author is Emily Henderberg, I think. Don't quote me on that. I know her first name is Emily. Her last name starts with an H. Don't remember the last name. Anyways, I was reading this book on the plane yesterday, and it's a love story. And so I'm like bawling my eyes out on the plane. Probably not the wisest thing. The person next to me probably thought I was lunatic because I kept reading the book, even though I was crying. And it was really interesting because I could relate so much to the main character. She was a bit of a people pleaser and just tried really hard not to argue or like upset people, because the book had said, her childhood, it was very much people would argue and then they would fight and then everybody would just disappear and disperse. And as children do, we equate that to something. In our little kid mind, it says, okay, if you fight, people leave you, right? Was kind of the vague translation of it. And I thought it was really interesting because my husband and I don't generally fight. There are discussions and arguments that we have, but we're not like the slamming doors, angry kind of fighters. It's I get mad at you. I generally walk away and then I come and I tell you why I'm mad at you is usually how it works. And often, more often than not, it's simply because it's a woman's brain versus a man's brain. And that is a conversation for another day. However, what I thought was really interesting in the book was she said, I never learned how to have a fight. The main character never learned how to have an argument, or like an adult way to have an argument and to still feel loved at the other side of it. And I thought, that's so interesting. And then I reflected on, have I taught my children how to have a fight? Have I taught my children how to argue with someone that they love and still feel loved at the end of it? And I want to say that I have. Because there have been, now, certainly a work in progress. I don't necessarily argue with my husband in front of the kids, although I have gotten more visible at it. Again, we're not having these knockout, drag down things, but we are having an open discussion. In fact, this was at the dinner table the other night. My girls immediately picked up on my mood change. Instantly, especially my youngest one. She's 8. We sat down at the dinner table and she knew immediately that there was something wrong with Mom. And she said, Mommy, what's wrong? And I said, well, I'm upset. And she said, well, do you want to talk about it? And I said, no, I don't really want to talk about it right now. And so a few more minutes went by and she said, Mommy, are you okay? Like, do you want to talk about it? And so we're sitting at the dinner table and I said, yes, sure, let's talk about it. And I was annoyed with my husband. I had sat down at the table while dinner was cooking, and I looked at him and I said, so how was your day? And he just kind of gave me this look, and I said, well, I'd like to have a conversation with you that doesn't involve logistics. Like, I wanted to be seen is really what I wanted, because there was a lot of coordinating, a lot of business, a lot of decisions that had happened that day, and I wanted to reconnect into my feminine and have a I see you conversation. Like, how was your day? How are you feeling? That's what I wanted. And he just kind of gave me this look. And so I immediately got annoyed. And I stood up and I continued cooking my food. To which he got up and went outside and did something. And I thought, oh God, he knows that my love language is acts of services. And so he went outside and he was cleaning the pool or whatever. And that even irritated me more because I was like, I just wanted to be seen. I just wanted to have a conversation with you. And so I say this at the dinner table. And I said, I just wanted somebody to see me and to appreciate me. I just wanted to be seen in the moment. And you seemed to have disappeared and didn't even want to have a conversation with me. And he just kind of looked at me flabbergasted and said, well, I didn't realize that was what you wanted, and then you got up to cook, and I thought you just needed to cook, so I went outside. I said, that's not how that works. I said, I got up because I was annoyed with you. Did you not notice the energy shift? And he was like, no, not really. Again, man's brain versus a woman's brain, right? But I had this discussion in front of my girls with my husband. And I thought that was so important, first off, because my girls watched me navigate it, and they picked up on my energy shift immediately. And it was just good to kind of show them, like, you can be angry at somebody and still have a conversation with them. There was no yelling or screaming. There was no slamming doors. It was very much, hey, my feelings were hurt. Here's how it happened. This is what it looked like, right? And I really think having those conversations in the open has really helped my kids have those conversations with me when they have disagreements with me about something, right? Because they are young and they're starting to flex their boundaries here and there, and I want to honor their individuality, also gently guiding them, right, as any other parent would, right? I'm not going to just throw them out to the wolves and have them figure it out from there. And so I really do believe that it is important to have these fights in front of your family, in front of your kids. Not in a way where they're, now, an emotionally intelligent discussion, I guess, right? I don't necessarily think that they need to see a screaming, yelling, door slamming kind of a thing. And maybe they, there are times where they have seen me go and like scream into a pillow and they're like, what's happening? And I explain, hey, like, I'm just really frustrated and I didn't want to yell at you, so I'm yelling at the pillow. And they have started to kind of mimic some of these things. And I have allowed them to be angry when they get angry. Listen, like, you're allowed to be mad about it. Be upset about it. But just because you're upset doesn't mean that you don't need to necessarily scream and yell at the other person, right? Because the situation is bringing up something for you. And of course, I make this age appropriate, right? I'm not necessarily having all of these conversations with my 8-year-old, right? My 16-year-old, yes, you're allowed to be upset and annoyed. You're allowed to be angry about it. And then we choose again, how are we showing up after the fact? Let's be angry, let's be frustrated, let's be annoyed about it. And then what are we choosing after that? And really coaching them through this, because there is going to be a lot of life that brings your shit up, right? Like, it's going to bring up stuff that's going to make you uncomfortable. You're not going to want to look at it. You're probably going to want to avoid it. But on some level, the more that you avoid those things, the more you actually start to push somebody away. And so when you can have those conversations of, hey, it irritates me when this happens, or it bothers me here, or I would like blah, 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 right? Like, being able to actually articulate those things is going to make all of your relationships that much better. And being able to show that to your children in the process is going to only help them along the way. And so this is actually something that I've started to do, is I've actually started to verbalize my own coaching through my own head. So when, let's say I'm in the car and somebody cuts me off and I get annoyed about it, and I'll say this out loud. It's okay, Steph, not a big deal. Nobody hit you. You're still in one piece. We're still going to get where we're going on time. And I've started to really show them kind of the inner workings of things that happen, whether it's, an email that I didn't like, or a business related thing, or, I've really opened the doors and shown them, because I do believe it's so important for them to see the process of it as opposed to the before and the results, right? Like, because it's that process that really is the changing part of it. And so I do believe that we should argue and fight and have confrontations in front of our children, so that they have a better idea of one, how that works, what it looks like, but also to know that you can totally disagree with someone that you love and still love them. And I think that may be a broader problem. Like, there are people that I don't agree with at all, 100% on things, but I still love them dearly. I don't have to agree with everything that you say to still love you. And I believe that's an incredible skill that we all need to be taught, where you can dialogue with someone and not necessarily agree, because there's no reason that you should convince me of something. If we want to have a discussion, we'll have a discussion. And if it changes my mind, it changes my mind. But in no way, shape, or form are you going to convince me of something. I'll do my own research and decide from there. But I love having the open dialogue, love having the discussion. And that has started to fade in the world of the internet, where you have all of these trolls who just kind of hang out and just are mean and rude and nasty about any differing view. And the beauty of the differing view is that it makes the world so interesting. Because it'd be real boring if everybody else was just like you. Real boring. And so embracing those different opinions, the different views, the different perspectives, right? You don't have to agree with it for it to still be a thing. As in the words of one of my mentors, she says, equal but different. We are all equal on an equal playing field here. And we're allowed to be different, and there's the beauty in the differences. It doesn't make anyone better than anyone else. It really is quite interesting. And I love having those dialogues. And I love, and I have those dialogues with my children as well. You know, there are some things where I have a hard and fast boundary around, and it's a flat out no. And there are other things where we have a discussion about it. And those discussions are really important for adulthood. So, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If it resonated with you, I would love if you would share it on social media. Tag me on Instagram in your stories. That would be great. And if you are new to my channel or my podcast, thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate your time. And if you found this interesting and you want to hear more, please like, subscribe, or share. All the things. I love being able to do this. So I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your day. And as always, be you, because the world needs more of you. Bye.